Welcome back to my workshop. As you can see, I've got a big pile of wood in front of me, so whatever we're going to do today, it's obviously going to involve big piles of wood. As I get older, whilst I like working in the garden, I find I do need to sort of stop every now and again. And there's something very nice about having a garden seat. So I've decided I'm going to build myself a garden seat, but a bit of a seat with a difference. I want one with a roof, so I can sit in the shade. I don't necessarily want to sit in the sun. I'm going to take advantage of all those sort of spare bits of wood I've got lying around in the workshop, partly because I want to clear up, but partly because I've been saving them up for this reason. But we won't tell anybody that bit. For the last couple of months, whenever I've gone to a garden centre or a garden, I've made a point of sitting on their benches to see if I can work out what's the most comfortable bench. And I must admit, I think I've got it sussed. I've worked out what the perfect height is, I've worked out what the perfect depth is, and I've also worked out what I think is the perfect shape. We'll find out very soon whether I've got it right. But in the meantime, let's get on with some work. So, as you can see, I've got this enormous great big pile of wood. This is all treated softwoods, so it's treated with some clever chemical by the manufacturers, so it's designed to be outside for a long time. This was all leftover stuff that I had when I made some 10-pin bowling alleys for somebody. I always like to order a little bit more just in case, because there's nothing worse than running out of wood at the very last possible moment. It screws the whole project. So we're going to start off with the uprights. I've cut myself here 4 pieces of wood, 75 to 50, and they're 1.7 metres long. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out the mortises. Now I've looked at the commercial products, and if you look at the ones in the garden centres, they're literally just sort of screwed together, which I'm sure they're fine because they'll last long enough to get through the guarantee period. And then one good rain and that'll be the end of them. I want something that's going to last slightly longer than that. So I'm going to mortise all of mine and then we'll glue it and then screw it. Which means it's going to be as solid as a rock. But that's often the way with the things I make. So that edge is going to be the bottom, this end is going to be the top. So I'm marking out mortises for top and bottom. And I'm also going to do one in the centre, but I need to get it at the right height because this is going to be the bottom of a windowsill. And I've calculated that the top of the windowsill needs to be at 750 mil. So all the mortises are now marked out. It's just a question of cutting them. Now I could cut this with a mortise machine. I do have one. But I like to do my videos in a way that I think you could do them at home. And you probably don't have a mortise machine at home. So just cut them with a chisel. It's a nice easy way to do it. So you start off just by going around the outside of the hole with a suitably sized chisel. If you're interested in having a copy of the design, get in touch with me. As you may or may not know, I do write a lot of books and I'm threatening to do one on garden furniture. So if you'd like a copy of the design of this, let me know and I'll actually get around to writing it. So I'm just going to cut all of these hundreds of mortises. So you go off and have a cup of tea. I'll see you in a minute. Now I've cut all the mortises and tenons, so we come to the top. Now I've cut this at a 45-degree angle, so what I'm now going to do is cut a halving joint to go at the top of here. Now when you cut joints like this, the one thing I always say is make sure you colour in the bit you know you're going to cut out. And if you do that now, you then know you won't get it wrong. There's nothing worse than cutting out the wrong bit, because you can't stick it back again afterwards. So what I'm going to do is cut out this bit here and leave that bit there. So having cut our halving joints at the top, then we're ready to start assembling. I'm going to start off by gluing all this little lot together. Now don't be shy in the amount of glue you use, put lots and lots of it on, and do make sure that you use a waterproof glue, because this is going to be stuck outside for years. I must be getting better at this woodworking lark, because it will fit you first time. But the amount of mortise tenons I've cut the last couple of weeks. For the last couple of weeks I've been making a set of carriage wheels. It involves an awful lot of mortise and tenons. 28 on every wheel. Which means you get rather good at them. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing outside of my videos, sign up for the blog. If you don't want to do that, you can always join me on Facebook. I'm Thomas Green at Facebook, not to be confused with a country and western singer. I'm sure he's a jolly fine chap, but he's not me. This is where you could start to see what I mean when I say this is a project made of leftovers. The actual frame itself was made up of 4x2s, which I had left over from making some 10-pin bowling alleys that I'd made for a customer. I cut them down into 3x2s, and I ended up with these strips here left over, which I'm now going to put here, so I've got battens to put my roof tiles onto. Now for the roof tiles itself, one of the things I make is I make hot tubs. I end up with a number of these. So it's a piece of red cedar, it's 150 millimeters across, and I cut it down to about 6 or 8 millimeters off. So what I've decided to do is to make these into cedar wood shingles. So I shall cut them down into pieces that way, and then I can just, you can see where I'm going. So, and that will make it very, very attractive. And so whilst the rest of the frame gets painted, these will be left in their natural format. And so at the moment they'll look particularly nice, but once they've had a chance to weather, they'll look even better. Well, as you can see, it's all had a coat of aluminium primer. It's an ugly colour, isn't it? But never mind, it does a job. Now up to now it's all been sort of quite boring. We've just been making a big carcass. There's nothing very exciting about it at all. It's fairly simple woodwork. If you're not very good at cutting joints, just screw the whole thing together. So now we get to the interesting bit, the actual making of the seat. I've spent the last hour milling some offcuts of red cedar, and that's what I'm going to use to make all of the seat, though not this bit here. That's just there just for me to lean against for the moment. It's a shame we don't have smell-o-vision. It gives the most incredible aroma to my workshop. But the important bit, there's a couple of important bits really, is first of all the height and the depth of the seat. Now when you're making a seat, obviously you want to make it the most comfortable seat for you. And if you follow a few simple rules, you can customise the seat to actually fit you. Now, first of all, you want the height of the seat from the floor. Look to see whether your knee bends. What you want is to come roughly at 90 degrees from the underside of your knee. Now I've measured my, I don't need to measure it, I know it of old because I've done it so many times. Half a metre, 500 mil from the inside of my knee to the floor. My dearly beloved is ever so slightly shorter than me. Well, I say ever so slightly, she's a lot shorter than me really. So really I'd want this to have another sort of centimetre or so higher. But for those of you who are married, you'll know life is always a compromise. And so therefore I've set this at 500 mil because that will suit both of us. And I've also made sure that she can sit on this quite comfortably before I actually make the thing. So 500 mil there. You then want to go from the inside of your knee to the back of your leg That's going to be the depth of what it is you're making. Now, again, my dearly beloved is ever so slightly shorter, so whilst I would like the front of the seat about there, she's not so keen on that, so we'll come in ever so slightly. So the width of the seat is going to go from the inside of your leg to the back of your leg, and then you need to come up at an angle. Now you could, if you're wanting to make a seat that you're not going to sit on for very long, just leave this as a straight bench, because this has got a back, but it won't make it very comfortable. So you do need to put a back in, and you want to make sure the back comes up to just below your shoulder. If you make it shorter than that, it'll be uncomfortable to sit on. Good for 10 minutes, but if you want to sit in it for any length of time, you need a bit more support on your back. So you want to come up to sort of just below shoulder height, and you need a couple of bits of support there, and it needs to come up at an angle. Now how you set the angle, again, depends on how long you want to sit in it. I want to be quite comfortable in this one, so I'm going to set it at an angle of about 15 degrees. Now if you want to find out what angle works best for you, probably the best thing to do, go and have a look at your car seat. Adjust the car seat so it's the perfect angle for you, and then just measure the angle. That's clever, isn't it? And then once you know that, then you can just set this little bit here. Now the last thing I'm going to do, which sets out the difference between one that you would buy from a shop and one that you're crafting, is how you actually do this bottom bit. In a cheap commercial seat, this bit is just going to be flat. You'll have slats going across, but it's going to be set straight, because to actually mill that, that's expensive, that takes time, that's money. So if they're trying to make something really cheaply, then they won't do it, they just leave it as a flat thing, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable. But then you can put a cushion on it, and it means they can sell you a cushion. So if you shape the bottom of this, it only needs to drop down, 20 mil, sort of in the centre, just so you have that sort of slight sculpted angle. You'll find it much more comfortable to sit on. Now the last thing to test, and this is where I've not in accordance with my dearly beloved. Now I've set this at a height of 750 millimeters, so it's 250 millimeters up from the bottom of the seat. That's done deliberately because it's the perfect height for me, so I can rest my hand on there, I can hold my cup, I can have my chocolate biscuit, and I can have the very first cup of tea, or the first of many cups of tea, in my new seat. I don't think I'm ever going to move this from the workshop. I need one of these all the time. This is wonderful. All this is good. Well, we made it out the workshop down into the garden, and what a lovely day it is too. Here you are. This is our structure with our little bit of feather edge cladding all the way around. And I can't help thinking that we could leave it like that. It looks very Instagram, doesn't it? But I'm never that fussed about the rustic look. Now I'm getting some good healthy screws into here, and because I'm using cedar wood, I'm using stainless steel screws. If you use standard steel screws, it reacts with the cedar wood and it doesn't like it. So. The end of a marvellous project. Oh, the moment of truth. Oh, I have to say. Oh, this is rather good. I think this is probably the most comfortable bench I've ever made, and I've made a few. It fits my body shape absolutely beautifully. This is just the right height, so I can have my cup of tea just here, Oh, I think I could stay here for quite a while now. The only problem is when you sit here you can see the weeds. I might have to do something about the garden. But one step at a time. In the meantime, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy this. This has been a long project, it's taken a good couple of days. But I've rather enjoyed doing it, and the end result is rather good. Now, as I said earlier on, If you're interested in a copy of the design, let me know. I keep threatening to write a book on garden design furniture. The next project I'm working on as well is also a garden design, but I think that's going to be quite unusual, that one, so you might need to come back and have a look for that. Do remember to press the subscribe button. It does make quite a difference to my life and I appreciate it. If you have any comments, get in touch. I always like to hear from people. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.